If you look carefully enough, you can sometimes come across an absolute bargain of a car. Today we have a 2014 Mercedes E400 coupe that is currently retailing at just 16.5 grand. That 16.5 grand gets you a 3.5 litre twin turbo V6 with over 300 horsepower, heated electric seats, adaptive suspension and Bluetooth audio. All that is packaged in this rather tasty coupe. But is it really a bargain, or is it a money pit waiting to happen? Let's find out. My name's Tom and you're watching Paragon Cars. Let's go. Before we start, please like, subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like us to keep bringing you this content. Also, don't forget to follow our socials for updates on our stock. Links in the description below. Now, in the current financial climate, finding a genuine bargain is very rare indeed. But I do genuinely think this could be one. The engine is the surprisingly rare 276 3.5 litre V6. This 3.5 litre version was only made for 2 years before Mercedes discontinued it and went back to the 3 litre version. It has the same 328 horsepower and 480 Newton meters of torque as the 3 litre cars, but it makes that power with lower boost, which means it's overall a slightly more reliable engine. It also means there's plenty of headroom if you wanted to map it. Tuners have easily been able to get an extra 90 horsepower out of just a stage 1 map. Today we're talking stock though. 0 to 60 is over in just 5 seconds, but what about the 30 to 70 sprint? Let's find out. Well, it's no rocket ship, but for a luxury cruiser it's certainly got some grunt. We managed a time of just 4.7 seconds, which makes this thing about hot hatch quick. That's plenty, I think, for something like this. The interior is starting to show its age, but you know what? A, it's still got everything you need, maybe minus Apple CarPlay, and B, it feels a tad more solid to the touch than later models of Mercedes. Less plastic and more leather. The rear though is unfortunately just for short journeys. I've got almost no leg room and my head touches the roof. It's good for kids though, as there's still cup holders and your own climate back here. Before we check out the boot, let's just look at this thing from the side and appreciate those pillarless door frames. Anyway, the boot. That can carry up to 450 litres of stuff, which is more than a Golf, so it's actually not half bad in terms of practicality. Then you can of course fold the seats down to create a long flat load floor. You won't be getting any fridges in here, but large TVs should fit just fine. Right, let's go for a drive and see if this is a bargain or a money pit. Now I know what you're thinking, this is an old man's barge. But during this review, I'm going to show you that there's more to this car than meets the eye. You see, I think if I put an E43 AMG badge on this, young people would lap it up, especially for the price tag. 16.5 grand. For a car with over 300 horsepower. And it's comfortable, and it's quiet, and it looks good. Pretty good deal, really. Anyway, how does it do around town? Well, the gearbox just slushes through the gears. The suspension is slightly sporty, but soft at the same time. We're sitting in the comfort setting at the minute. It's going to be interesting to see what the sport setting is like later. Steering is nice and light. So yeah, I think old men know what it's about when it comes to cars a bit. They've had the experience of the hot hatch and want something slightly more comfortable but still fun. And the one thing I notice already is just how solid this car is. It just feels denser than the new Mercedes lineup. Like the new E-Class is bigger and more showy, but you start prodding around and you get creaks everywhere, whereas this is just proper solid stuff. In terms of parking, it's also fairly easy because you've got no B-pillar, you can see in your blind spot really easily. You still get a reverse camera, which is fine. no problems with it. It's got lines telling you where you're going to go, good refresh rate, plenty of steering lock to be had, and overall it's actually quite a small car. Less crash protection, but easier to park. But round town it is just unbelievably smooth to drive. Because you have a large engine, it just means it's never straining, basically. Like coming out of a junction now, half throttle, and it is ready to go. Didn't even go above 3,000 RPM. You just get this lovely wave of torque combined with a really smooth gearbox. I've turned the traction control off for the whole of the review, purely because it's really hard to do. You've got to go through a whole bunch of menus. I don't know why they did that. You know, in proper AMGs they just had a button there and it was so much easier. Anyway, let's reset our trip computer to see what MPG we get. We should get around 37 to 40 driving conservatively. I'm hoping we can get above 40 because it means for a long distance cruiser this would be an awesome car to have. Before we do that though, let's have a quick taste of the handling around some roundabouts. Right, let's go into their version of sport mode. There we go, sport mode. Then we're going to put the dampers into their firmer setting as well. Plus, I can take control of the gears myself. It's an older gearbox, but it responds fine, really. I can actually put it into manual. Yeah, there we go, manual. Let's have a quick taste. Oh, it's got such nice pickup. Nice smooth sound to it. When you think about it, this with an exhaust, it'd sound pretty fruity. And a stage 1 map as well. I think this would be a bit of a sleeper. D-badge it, I mean it looks like an old E220 diesel really. It's just the pickup you get from that engine is so nice. Anyway, let's not get carried away. Go back into eco, back into comfort setting, the old man setting. I think they're onto something though, because it is a comfy car, but it's still fun. I want to see if I can get it sideways on a roundabout later. It's going to be interesting. Even getting onto a motorway though, it's just like a quarter throttle, just this effortless build of torque. So relaxing to drive. And again, just so solid. Unbelievably solid. Let's give a little demonstration of this gearbox. See, that was pretty quick really. Can't complain. On the motorway then, and oh, this is bliss. Quiet ride, no wind noise, and just a big comfy chair to sit in. This is the perfect motorway cruiser. The engine just relaxes and you've just got this thick wave of torque underneath your right foot to push you along the road. I mean, it really doesn't get better than this, guys. This is so nice to travel in on the motorway. And when you consider the price of this thing, it just gets even better. You know, this car's covered nearly 80,000 miles, and you could tell me this had done 15 to 20,000 miles, and I would not be able to tell the difference. Admittedly, the previous owner was very diligent in their maintenance of this car, but when you consider the kind of person that owned this car originally, is probably another old guy with plenty of cash in the bank to do maintenance and cleaning. You know, it kind of makes sense really. You're effectively getting a really solid deal because the car's been well looked after. It's already a fairly reliable engine as well. The only major issue you might get is carbon buildup, but that's the same with literally every direct injection engine ever. So yeah, a reliable car that's been well looked after with over 300 horsepower going to the rear wheels for cheap. and it's still got all the modern tech you want. It's still got Bluetooth audio, still got heated seats, dual zone climate control. So yeah, there is nothing to complain about. Anyway, in terms of visibility, let me let this guy past. Obviously, as I said, when we were parking, you've got no B-pillar, so it's really easy to see in your blind spot. Visibility out the front is really good as well. Then you've got big wing mirrors, just in case you miss something. But overall, you've got really good visibility because it's quite a square shape. It's just easy to see out of, really. A-pillars are nice and thin, no B-pillar again. So yeah, easy car to drive on the motorway. Then in terms of quality, I mean, I don't really want to be the bearer of bad news, but ever since about 2016, all the newer generations of Mercedes seem to have lost this solidity about them. Like, they just had slightly too much plastic in the interiors and became slightly rattly, or they just don't feel as thick inside. It's hard to describe. But this, when you get into it and you close the door, it's like this really heavy clunk that you get. And it feels like the car is just better made out of thicker steel. And it probably is, because there's no rattles in here. I mean, not a single one. You can go over rough surfaces, you know, you can go over a pothole, and it just takes it on the chin. It's a really solid chassis, this. And just nothing feels loose. The steering's still just as sharp as it was when it was new. There's no knocks from the suspension. So yeah, I mean, it's a well-built car, this. Really well built. Then in terms of wear and tear, as I said before, it had a very diligent owner. So, I mean, it basically looks brand new inside. You look at the dash, there is pretty much zero wear on the leather. Even the bolsters of the seat down here, which would usually be torn to shreds if it was a young person owning this, or anyone that just didn't take care of their car, don't want to be ageist. It would usually be torn to shreds, but I mean, it looks almost brand new. So yeah, the only bit of wear and tear I notice is just this bit on the steering wheel, and that's literally it. Then in terms of seat comfort, it is a very comfortable seat. However, all Mercedes of this generation, including the C-Class and even the S-Class, couldn't get their seats quite low enough for people that are sort of over 5'6". I'm on the lowest setting right now, and as you can probably tell from the GoPro, I'm pretty much sitting in the roof. Like, if I sit up, my head is literally touching the ceiling now. So you kind of do have to slouch down a little bit, but that is the only negative, I think, of this car so far. Literally the only negative. Then in terms of responsiveness on the motorway, oh no, guy's changing lanes now. Oh well. Try again. And in terms of responsiveness on the motorway, you just give it half throttle and it changes gears pretty quickly. The only time this gearbox is slow is when you're asking it to do 3 gears or more. That's when it kind of struggles a little bit. But ask it for 2 gears, like that, and it does it within about 0.3 of a second. So for daily driving, it's actually perfect. Now then, in terms of cost options, if I only had 3 choices, what would I pick for this car? Well, this is a hard one, you see, because there's quite a lot in here that I want, and I don't really want to live without it. First thing is going to be this Harman Kardon sound system. This is actually quite a rare option in these cars, but oh my god, is it worth it? For an older car, it sounds amazing, like genuinely really good. It competes with like the latest B&O system in Audis. The only thing I noticed is that the rear deck rattles a little bit, but that is something that can easily be fixed with a bit of Dynamat or just a bit of double-sided tape. But the quality of the sound is, I mean, it's A-star quality. You know, you've got loads of bass, good mids, good highs, and when you turn it all the way up, not that you'd need to, the clarity stays. This is one thing that I find in a lot of newer cars. They give you like the highest wattage sound system, you know, they just give you more watts. But it's pointless, because as soon as you go above half volume, the sound just gets mushy, and then it's not really enjoyable. So for me, this system is probably one of the best on the market still. Can't complain at all. Then the next thing is actually going to be a panoramic roof. The one in this car is actually pretty big, and I think if you're going for an aftermarket exhaust, having that ability to tilt it open and listen to it is pretty important. So that's definitely something you want. Plus it lets quite a lot more light into the cabin, and when you consider you're sitting quite high up, it does feel pretty dark without it, so it's definitely something worth having. And the last thing is probably just going to be heated seats. I can't think of anything else that you'd want, but in winter you got leather seats, you kind of need them to be warm because leather does feel really cold in winters. So yeah, that's pretty much it really. Other than that, you've got cruise control as standard, nothing else that you'd want really. Bluetooth comes with it as well. Yeah, I mean that's it. That's literally it. Right, we've got a couple more miles to do on the M25, so hopefully we can get a pretty good MPG figure, although at the minute we are sitting in quite a lot of traffic, so I doubt we're going to get above about 35, unfortunately. What are we sitting at now? 32.5. We'll see how we do. See you in a bit. Oh, I finally made it off the motorway. I adjusted the angle of the GoPro a bit because otherwise you were just kind of looking at the ceiling. I keep forgetting how high up you are in this thing. Anyway, how did we do in terms of MPG? Well, we're currently sitting at 33.6, and I know that's not an amazing figure, but when you consider I've literally just been in stop-start traffic pretty much the whole way on this journey, it's pretty good really. I think over a long journey, if there wasn't too much traffic, you could quite easily get about 41 miles per gallon out of this thing. So yeah, for an older car, it's pretty efficient. Probably more efficient than that Audi Quattro. Anyway, let's see how the old man's car handles on the B road. Right, back into sports mode with the traction off. Dampers in sports as well. Let's see how this thing handles. Stays relatively flat for a big car in the corners. You can certainly carry some speed, that's for sure. Nice bit of rotation from the rear. I mean, yeah, stage 1 map, exhaust. This thing will be awesome to drive. New brakes, let's see what they're like. Yeah, good. Nice confident pedal feel. Sound check, I guess. Yeah, you can see there's potential for a good noise to come out the exhaust system. But it handles well, man. Grips the road nicely. Yeah, that's as quick as a hot hatch will do it around there. Tiny bit more body roll, but it handles itself well. And the seats do a really good job of holding you in place as well, actually. Alright, one more time for good luck. Oh, look at that. Rear wheel drive is definitely king. It's just more fun. It's easy to do as well. The ESC is still on, so if you're a bad driver, or if you're not a bad driver but inexperienced, it's still easy to do, and you can do it safely as well. Just gives you a little bit of fun, basically. The brakes are really nice actually. They're quite soft on the initial bite point, but once you get into them, they're really confidence inspiring. Let's give it one more go on the sound check. Go from first gear this time, I think. Quite nice, really. God, he's leaning a lot. It's a nippy thing with a stage 1 map. I mean, you're keeping up with like an old C63 quite easily. around the tighter stuff then, would you keep up with a hot hatch down here? Well, it's certainly got the legs. In terms of handling, I mean, yeah, you would. Because it's rear wheel drive, it just pushes you around the corner. Suspension is soft enough for UK roads, but stiff enough to control the chassis. Bit of air there. You could easily keep up with the Golf R down here. Get into the brakes, very nice. Push out the corner. Oh yes. It's a really good 9/10 car, this. You can push it to 10/10, but you know, it starts getting a little bit loose then. At 9/10, it's just really nice and pleasant. Oh, it's got so much potential to sound really good as well. Wow, this is one of these cars that is actually a genuine bargain. It's reliable, got everything you need, enough power to have fun with, and actually not crazy expensive to run. Whack an exhaust on it, and you've basically got an E43 AMG. Please check this car out in the link below, as I might actually buy it if you don't. As always, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give it a like, and why not subscribe? As not only can you see more content like this, you can see everything we have for sale, which includes this Mercedes. My name's Tom, and you've been watching Paragon Cars. I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.